Americans were shocked by the meagerness of the Italian kitchen. The typical Italian lived on nothing but bread, salad, and coffee. On Sundays, the Italian family treated themselves with pasta, simply seasoned with maybe some oil and garlic. When the Italian homemaker went marketing, she bought only the cheapest raw materials, stale bread, wilted vegetables, and rotten fruit, foods that were too far gone to sell, even by other immigrant standards. As Italians settled in and income levels rose, the Italian pantry expanded. One thing, however, did not change. Despite American attempts to reform the Italian homemaker, she stayed true to her culinary roots and simply refused to budge. In settlement houses that catered to Italians, cooking classes had no enrollment. After 1920, New York City kids were given free lunch courtesy of the Board of Education. Italian mothers were not impressed. Despite the free food, they insisted that their children come home for a proper lunch, a bowl of hot minestrone and a vegetable frittata. There are many examples of the Italians' food loyalties, but I'm going to focus on one of them. By the start of the 20th century, all Italian groceries, these are groceries that dealt just in Italian products, had become a regular feature of the many Little Italies scattered around the U.S. These small shops, many of which doubled as cafes, provided Italian homemakers with literally dozens of pasta shapes, olives and olive oil, anchovies, canned tomatoes, jarred peppers, jarred eggplants, dried figs, dried mushrooms, dried herbs, hams, salamis, and a wide selection of cheeses. More impressive than the variety, however, was the fact that all of these goods were imported. For Italian immigrants, eating in the Italian style was not enough. Rather, it was crucial that the ingredients themselves sprang from the Italian soil. Many of the foods sold in Little Italy were available in domestic versions, but the Italians saw them as counterfeit. To the Italian palate, American hams were cured too quickly. American-made cheese was too low in butter fat. American garlic was tasteless. American vinegar was the wrong color. Worst of all, American pasta. It was made from the wrong kind of flour, and it had no life in it, no spring, no bite. What I find so remarkable in the fact of these groceries with all of their imported goods is the fact that people with very little disposable cash could be so discerning in their food choices. Domestic pasta, for example, was half the price of imported, but Italian homemakers were unmoved and literally saved their pennies for the genuine article. In the Italian hierarchy of what really mattered in life, next to food, money was secondary. In 1903, one of the New York newspapers ran a story on the Italian groceries that posed a very interesting question, and one that I had never seen asked before. Is there something on those shelves that might be of use to American cooks? The answer was yes. And now I would just like to read the opening paragraph from this rather incredible article, which I saw as a very important turning point in our culinary relations. The adventurous American housewife, straying into the foreign quarter, sometimes pauses at the window of the Italian grocery and wonders if the things inside are fit to eat. She peers at the queer-shaped cheeses, the quaint patterns of macaroni, the canned things, with pictures of Vesuvius or Queen Margherita on their flamboyant covers, and wonders if, in the dim, mysterious interior, are things that would add variety to her table. She might find a number of things that would do so if she knew how to ask for it. For me, this article was a snapshot of a major turning point in our culinary history. It was the moment of the Great Thaw, the start of the American love affair with Italian cooking. Looking beyond the realm of food for a moment, I'd like to wrap up with a couple of final thoughts. The Lower East Side and neighborhoods like it served as a kind of training ground for immigrants. Here, in the safety of the tenements, immigrants learned how to manage in America. They learned new domestic skills and new forms of work. Many learned English, the key to economic mobility. They also learned, however, how to look and act and carry themselves like Americans. Women folded up their kerchiefs and bought their first American hat. Men shaved their beards and put away their pipes. They also developed a taste for cigars. In their leisure hours, immigrants learned how to entertain themselves like Americans. East Siders were regular customers at the nickel theaters that played America's first silent movies. On Sundays, they took the elevated railroad out to Coney Island. On the 4th of July, they hung flags from the fire escapes and lit bonfires and danced in the streets like any good American. When it came to mealtime, however, these same immigrants went to extraordinary lengths to preserve their native foods and food traditions. On the most concrete level, native foods tasted the way food was supposed to taste. They looked right and they smelled right, something which could not be said for these cottony white breads and the undercooked meats, still oozing with blood that Americans seem to enjoy. On a more abstract level, native foods provided the immigrant with a form of emotional ballast. They were a bridge to the past, to the relatives and the hometowns they would never see again. They were a source of pride and of group solidarity. The outsider accounts that we've been looking at tonight are so valuable and so interesting to me because they tell this wonderful double story. On the one hand, they describe the immigrant's attachment to his native foods. On the other, they describe how Americans responded to those foods and even how food attitudes changed over time. I'd like to suggest that in the last 100 years, American eating habits have come full circle. The foreign foods that caused such concern to our foremothers and our forefathers are now mainstays of the American dinner table. And there's no foreign cuisine we've embraced more completely than Italian, our old culinary nemesis. We're not afraid of pickles, or suspicious of garlic, or flavor in general. Immigrants gave us their food, but also their taste buds. And if we're lucky, the immigrants also left us with some small fraction of their ingenuity, their stamina, and their spunk.